is the first card.
The ceremonial dice roll. Yeah.
I like it's a good ceremonial dice roll. It's kind of a bit of fun.
I think I'm judging by Darren's demeanor here. He might be going first here.
He's giving off vibes of somebody going first. He's having a good look. He's talking. I mean, he's always talking.
Darren is always talking. You've probably heard him if you've ever been to an event.
Well, he was commentating on the UK Open as well. So.
Oh, I just mean you will hear him very loudly.
We can probably hear him from the feature match area,
All right, he does indeed win the dice roll here and starts off with a Fenrir into Theosis.
Yeah, we see this line again where you use the Theosis before using Fenrir's effect. So it's a minor thing, as to whether you're expecting Gamma, or maybe you'd rather get the Fenrir search than you'd rather get the Unicorn search. So if you're hit by a drawn Lockbird, you'd rather secure the search that you really, really want, which in this case is the Birth rather than
I think Birth is when you establish that, it's such an incredible card, especially in the grind game, just being able to bring a monster back every turn and let you extend by normal summoning without the tribute. It's really, really powerful. In
an awful lot of situations, it's the one card that can help you extend. Because if you don't have any Kashtira monster, if your opponent plays Book of Moon, for example, on your first Kashtira monster, then you've got a monster in place, you can't special summon any, and you don't have a Kashtira monster face up for Theosis, so how else are you going to get an extra Kashtira monster on the field? And the answer is Kashtira Birth.
It's a really heavy engine hand that Darren's opened here. I think he's got quite a lot of Kashtira cards, which is pretty fine, right? You're never really going to be mad about opening multiple Kashtiras because it does let you get as many of those, Diablosis banishes, the Shangri-La established, as well as the follow-up and the Rise Heart tag. There's a lot of just huge amount of stuff you put on the field with Kashtira, and when you're playing as a non-mirror match, just raw engine, it's, pound for pound, it's really hard to deal with.
I agree. I think, it's kind of I think people their plan A is to maybe not make a huge commitment with the Kashtira engine. If you have a couple of defensive cards, but if your whole hand is Kashtira cards, you kind of need to go all in, make those big plays. And we do see actually that in Fletcher's deck there is the tools to punish it. Darren's kind of forced to do this line. I don't think anyone would say, if you've drawn 4 Kashtira cards that you should just go Rise Heart Pass. But there are 3 Nibiru's in Fletcher's deck. You're kind of forced to, there's no real way to play around Nibiru other than just stopping here, which obviously Darren doesn't want to do. So Nibiru could come down from Fletcher and shake up the game quite a lot.
Yeah, I think that's why Darren's taken his time here to think about each little play, because it is something to consider. First of all, you got to consider that Droll, which he played around really well. And now it's a case of, okay, well, we're on summon number 4 here. How much further do we go? Because Rise Heart will be 5.
Yeah, you could pass now. An unorthodox strategy.
As you said, it is kind of a case, well, once you've committed, you sort of just have to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting take here for the first zone to lock out, being a scale. And the reason for that is it's extremely powerful against Wakaushi, which a lot of people are definitely aware of this format. It's super heavy, but the great reason why it works so well is that it doesn't let you activate the effect of Wakaushi because it's to place into the other scale. So even locking one single scale is enough to totally shut down that engine. And the way that Fletcher's holding his hand here, I think it might have a bit of a surprise for him.
Is this a Nibiru? Or do you think he's just kind of trying to mess with Darren? Because I feel like once you're kind of hovering over a card, you're kind of pretending it's a Nibiru.
Okay. Yeah, the way he was holding that card there really made me question it, but all right.
I can't think of what other cards you'd use, and he might just be trying to mess with Darren. That would be very funny. Because, it doesn't really matter, because there's no way Darren's going to pass in this situation, right? So
I feel like Darren is going to probably have to, the next decision past this point, wow, it was drawn! Oh, Nibiru the Primal Being is the special summon to tribute all monsters your opponent controls and give them just nothing but a large token.
Yeah, it's a very large token, It's a consolation for sure.
Especially locking out that zone there with the, locking out your opponent's ability to special summon more Kashtiras. It's really important over the course of a whole duel, but I think Birth has already been used, is that correct? The extra normal or the special?
One of the effects has been used, I'm not sure I think he's used one effect. I can't remember which one, so I think he'll still be able to special summon from his graveyard.
Right. So Shangri-La has activated this turn, so if we can put one more cash monster up, it will still at least, just be Rise Heart. Okay, yeah, so
he must use the special summon.
Yeah, so we still get to do a normal summon here, which is really strong.
Yeah, it is good to have an Rise Heart in play. The downside is that because it doesn't have any materials under it yet, it won't be able to use its effect to banish a card from Fletcher. Unfortunately, even though Nibiru's got 3,000, the Arise Heart is being boosted by the field spell. So it's not, you can't just go straight to battle phase and crash, but yeah, it's still a much weaker board than Darren would have liked to end up on, for sure.
But here's the thing, despite the fact that the Nibiru has sort of completely cut down that massive line that Darren was going for. Oh, triple talons.
Well. Yeah, I was interested in this from Fletcher. Like, he was obviously pretty nervous and was like holding on to that Nibiru as to whether he could have waited a moment longer, because the Kashtira player is always going to end with an Arise Heart in play if they can, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe if you just wait until the
it was a bit preemptive, wasn't it?
Play,
maybe he didn't want to lose his extra deck monster. That's why he did it on the Diablosis summon.
Yeah, and a few cards. I mean, one thing that people have mentioned to me this weekend is that Diablosis, like if it banishes a few of your Pearly monsters from your main deck, that can actually be really annoying. So maybe he was like keen to get the Nibiru in play ahead of the Diablosis trigger and stop any of his monsters being banished from his deck.
Triple Talents is going to remove the Book of Moon in Fletcher's hand here, putting it back to the deck, leaving Fletcher with nothing but raw Engine. And I suppose, we kind of touched upon this. I think, pound for pound, engine to engine, especially once you've established Rise Heart, I think Kashtira's, despite the huge Nibiru, in a not terrible position.
Oh, for sure. And it's going to be very difficult for Fletcher to prevent, in order for the Arise Heart not to get any more materials, Fletcher would have to not use any cards that would go to the graveyard, which is pretty hard to do. So, but he might be able to. Yeah, this is my friend Pearly, very useful here. It requires you to reveal 3 and then your opponent randomly selects one, but if you've only got the one, oh, is that an Ash?
That is an Ash Blossom.
Oh, that's really annoying for Fletcher, because now, not only is my friend Pearly negated, but it gets the Arise Heart up to that magical 3 materials, which gives it, turns its banish effect online.
All right, this is a really important Pearly here. If we can get just another engine piece off the top here, it might be a decent way back into the game here. We hit a Sleepy Memory and a Pearlily. Going to take the Sleepy Memory to the hand
some
here.
Good tongue twisters in the Pearly arsenal.
So with Rise Heart now online, that's very, very huge. Do you think you use it on like the activation of a Pearly to attach, or when do you think like the sort of best opportune time is to banish?
It can be quite tricky because you don't know what they're going to summon when they activate the Pearly effect. Because you don't have to reveal. You don't reveal when you activate the effect. You just you reveal it when you're resolving the effect. So Darren would have to sort of chain the Arise Heart immediately. Fletcher will have access to a Zeus if he wants it. He is running the. I don't want to say its name. The bird that
the
says
little bird.
no.
Fucho?
I love the art on it, Fucho. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like a bird that's like looking away from you, like you can't touch me. Because it's unaffected by your opponent's card effects. So yeah, you can make that, and that's like the easiest way in the world to make a Zeus, right? Because your opponent can't interrupt it, and then you just get to go straight into that Zeus in main phase 2. But it would be like quite a heavy investment, and Fletcher's only got the 1 card left in his hand. Well, depending on what this Pearly hits.
So Pearly is going to mill off the top here. Hits nothing. That's a whiff there.
Oh yeah, I was wondering if he was going to. For some reason, I thought he was going to get to pick one of those to add it, but you can't add a car off Pearly.
Rise Heart's definitely getting larger here, and I noticed that Darren picked up his own banish card, and I assume that's probably because you don't want to be in a situation where if you take Pearlies and attach them, because once Pearlies are banished, there's no way to recur them.
Yeah.
So if you put them under a Rise Heart and Rise Heart leaves, you put them back in the graveyard, and that's potential like memory targets and all the rest of it for the course of the duel.
Yeah, in general, it's better to attach your own targets if you can, and that's partly for the reason you mentioned, and it's also because you get effects of Kashtira cards when they're banished. So if you banish, for example, a Theosis, then you can add a banished Kashtira card from your to your hand.
Yeah.
Or if you banish a Big Bang, which Darren did, I think, then he'll be able to take one of the materials that's under a Rise Heart and either special summon it or add it to his hand, which is what he's doing now. And it's going straight into play, and he gets to attach the Big Bang straight away again.
So why do you think he banished the attack position Pearly and not maybe just wait for the XE?
So it might be that he's scared of Fucho in particular, but I'm not. I couldn't say.
Doesn't Rise Heart work against Fucho?
No, it's unaffected by card effects.
Oh, I thought it was just untargetable.
I mean, Rise Heart also targets.
Oh. That card is way worse than I thought it was. Why is everyone complaining about it?
I think you're thinking of the Mirror Jade.
All right, so this is Happiness.
Yeah, we're going to upgrade into E. It's really powerful when your opponent has a lot of monsters in play that E Pearly Happiness, because it can attach copies of Happy Memory from the deck, and each time it attaches, after it attacks, it gets to search a Purely card from your deck to your hand, and it also has the effect that when or it has the same effect that all of the rank 2 Purely monsters have, which is when you activate a Purely spell, then you can attach it. So if you attack and then you search a copy of Happiness, then you can attach the Happiness, and then the Purely monsters get 1 extra attack for every Happiness they have attached. So you can attack again
4 times
and then
in a turn,
search
I think?
again. Yeah.
Hypothetically?
Yeah, I mean, you do have to be aware. I don't know how big the token is. Obviously, you're taking a bit of damage every time you attack.
Yeah.
Once you have a Happiness attached, though, you can start to halve the attack of monsters that are being... after you use the effect to search, you also get to halve the attack of a monster in play as well. So you might be able to eventually beat over some of the Kashtira monsters or the token itself. This Happiness is going to generate quite a lot of resources for Fletcher. The only thing I'm not 100% sure about is whether
token stats, right?
Oh yeah, no, I was just wondering whether you can actually attach... I don't know if the Purely Quick Play spell has to end up in the graveyard for it to be attached. I don't think anything in the wording of E Purely Happiness implies that the Quick Play spell has to end up in the graveyard, so I think it should be okay. But it's always something to keep in mind. Sometimes some niche rulings like this can come up. It's going straight for Delicious here rather than going through any Happy Memories. It might be the case that some of the Happy Memories are banished. I mean, there's at least 1 Happy memory under it, so it gets at least 2 attacks. So I guess maybe you just buff it first and then attack and then start searching more Happy Memories. Darren's going to get a good lesson in how these Purely cards work. He's going to be like, what does that do? So now it gets more attacks. Oh wait, now it gains attack. What is going on? Why are all of my monsters leaving the field?
I think Rise Heart's going to leave the field now as we've half the attack of that and attacked over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really looked like Fletcher was on the back foot, but just like resolving this 1 Purely Happiness is going to be such an impactful battle phase.
Forgot to mention actually also that at some point throughout this, the Unicorn triggered and banished the copy of Zeus from Fletcher's extra deck. Let's see how many copies playing. He is playing 2.
I think it's very standard to have 2 Zeus.
Yeah, it's super important going second card for Pearly. So even though I suppose the whole logic is that it's better to hit a card that they only have access to 1 copy of rather than trying to hit Zeus over 2 turns. But because Zeus is so important, I think you just have to try and hit it over multiple turns.
There's 2 copies of most of the important cards in Fletcher's extra deck, so I think it's quite difficult. He's harming that Arise Heart a lot. I don't know how much damage is actually being inflicted to Darren here. If you keep halving the Arise Heart and attacking it again, you're going to do quite a lot of damage.
There are lines of OTKs that Pearlies can do with this type of play, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough here. Is it? Oh, I think he's actually going through the motions of the OTK, right?
It must have been enough for Darren to concede. I think it looked like it, unless there was some mistake going on and he just accidentally crashed his E Purely Happiness.
Yeah, so I think there's like an OTK, as you mentioned. You keep searching, then you keep attacking, and then halving,
and eventually the attack's so small, and
yeah,
you're just doing a ton of damage with every attack.
Wow, that was an incredible comeback, especially when you open such a powerful engine hand like that. I suppose in hindsight it's easy to say, hey, maybe Rise Heart Pass was the play. He
still ended on Rise Heart Pass.
He still ended on Rise Heart Pass
just with extra steps.
I don't know, I'm really, I'm shocked that Pearly managed to make that seem very manageable.
I think the Nibiru was extremely important there. I don't think we can understate the importance of that. Without the Nibiru, then the Pearly would have had to deal with having no zones. Yeah. Which is obviously very difficult. And would have lost a few cards from his deck and a few more a clutch card from his extra deck as well. So I think Nibiru was a very important piece, and then it was backed up by the Purely engine as well.
Which surprisingly you'd think would be totally neutered with the banishing effect of Rise Heart, but
it seems to make quite short work of it, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So going into the next game here, Darren's probably going to want to go first, and I guess it's really terrifying in this situation because now you know that your opponent not only is main decking Nibiru, but they're going to have it in game 2 and 3. How do you play this one?
One thing you said, like, Darren doesn't have to go first, and a lot of people I've spoken to with Kashtira say that sometimes, like, Kashtira I think is a deck that's like amazing at going second, and it's kind of fine at going first.
It is really good at pulling apart fields.
But yeah, like, it's excellent at going second because the monsters come down, you can just special them straight from your hand. They're really big. They all have bonus effects when you attack. So it might be the case that you want to go second with the deck. I'm not 100% sure, and it probably depends on matchup to matchup. Definitely in the Kashtira mirror, people are going second quite frequently, I think.
All right, well, we're going to find out exactly what's being chosen here. And Darren, playing on the back foot now, has to reverse sweep that 2-0 now, I guess, because that's the only chance he's going to have of staying in for this top 8, as Fletcher is making a lead here with the Pearly deck. Darren has actually opted to go first regardless, and, well, Pressure Planet Wraith's Off is activated here. Darren has a big hand of spells, as you can see.
You see what they are? I thought I saw a Big Bang and a Book of Moon.
Yeah, there's definitely a Terraforming in there as well as a Big Bang.
Terraforming's not good if you've already got the field spell. Heads up from Darren, obviously. We were talking about John Lockbird before, so if you had the field spell and the Terraforming, like normally you'd activate the Terraforming first in case your opponent had Ash Blossom, but now that John Lockbird's so popular, you'd much rather just make sure you get your search through in case your opponent has John Lockbird.
And we have a confirmation there from Fletcher that there is indeed no draw on Lockbird, so still going to be able to do a decent amount of, I guess, comboing here on Darren's part. And again, I guess it's just a question of, hey, what do we do about that Nibiru?
Yeah, I don't know what you do. I don't know if you just kind of close your eyes and do your combo and hope it's not there, or whether you just go a bit more. I mean, once you've been punished quite hard by it in game 1, maybe you just go for the relaxed approach of just a Rise Heart pass.
But it's also like a sort of, it feels almost like a strange results-oriented kind of bias that you can establish, right? Because you've just, you have that recency of, hey, I've been Nibiru'd, and then you start to play unnecessarily conservatively when realistically you should just kind of go in.
For sure. Well, you have to make a decision. It's really tricky to make these decisions in a game because you can't really tell. It's just your opponent's opening hand whether they have Nibiru or not. I mean, he's used an impermanence here. It doesn't mean he doesn't have Nibiru. I mean, yeah, it's always hard to tell.
So that Unicorn just got infinite impermanence, and I'm just wondering, Darren has a Book of Moon there. Do you think there's a world where you Book of Moon your own Unicorn to guarantee the Theosis?
Well, the downside of Book of Mooning the Unicorn is that now it's a level, you can't use it as a material, so you get the Theosis, but like, what are you getting off that Theosis? Another level 7, so you might as well.
Really does
might
the
as
same
well
thing.
just keep the level 7, yeah. It's always something to think about. We saw players side in Book of Moon to do with skill drain as well. Or actually, when I spoke to Connor, when he said he sided in Book of Moon specifically to do with Magic Cylinder. But yeah.
That was a matchup.
That was a matchup.
All right, well, the Terraforming will add another Pressure Planet here, so that's going to be fine for next turn to reestablish and get another search. But on this turn, however, it's looking quite rough here, as we don't have too many more crazy plays. Like, do you just leave Fenrir and Unicorn up?
I think there's definitely a merit to doing that. You could instead make maybe a Diablosis and then look at your opponent's extra deck once, and then use the Birth to revive the material you detach, so maybe the Unicorn or the Fenrir. It doesn't look like Darren's going to do that. He'd rather have the Unicorn and Fenrir. But yeah, I was going to suggest, like, for example, you could like banish a Zeus from your opponent's extra deck and then have the Unicorn ready to banish another card from your opponent's extra deck when they use a monster effect. Book of Moon immediately being used. Double Book of Moon! Book of Eclipse with extra steps.
This is a, Book of Eclipse with a -2 deficit.
Honestly,
there.
At the end of the day, you'd rather, if your opponent's got these Book of Moons, that you didn't make a Rise Heart, because then you've kind of consolidated 3 monsters into one, whereas in this case, Fletcher's used he's used 2 Book of Moons and an infinite impermanence to deal with Darren's sort of opening gambit, if you like. So
15 plus years and Book of Moon still being a meta threat that it is, and I guess so many people have said multiple times the best -1 in Yu-Gi-Oh!
That was definitely foolish burial.
Good point. Delicious added off of the
Targeting,
over here.
you know, Darren just checking there that you can target a face down monster, which I assume Fletcher knows what he's doing by this point, that you can.
All right, Sleepy Memory in rotation as well for a Pearly here, and it's not looking ideal.
I'm interested why you start with the Pearly. It might mean that he's got a Lily or another quick play spell. I think you've got to have Lily in your hand at this point, so I don't know why you'd go straight for the Pearly. Because Lily's like a guaranteed search, whereas Pearly could miss. So you always want to play a Lily if you can, every turn. So here we see the miss, because it has to add a spell and trap, can't add that Pearly Lily. So yeah, I'm not sure where Fletcher's going to go with this. He's only got one card left. We saw Darren's got that Book of Moon, as you were talking about earlier. So if the one card in hand is a spell, and you use the Pearly effect, then you just chain Book of Moon, and you don't get to make an XYZ. And then there's no way you can summon any more Pearly monsters with just one spell, because you don't have the discard. And if the one card in hand is a Pearly Lily, then you can't use the Pearly, so you'll just book the Pearly Lily. So this has got to be a spell in his hand, because I'm guessing Fletcher activated the effect of Pearly, and Darren responded to it. And this looks like the cleanest.
I think you've predicted this quite well here.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it's gone down, and the Book of Moon actually being clutch here. The third one is the charm, I suppose, for this duel.
Yeah, this was 3 books between the players here. Yeah, this was really interesting. I mean, Darren was not looking happy when those 2 Book of Moons came down, but
Fletcher scoops that one up, and it was a bit shaky for a bit there. I thought Darren was really on the back foot, but
it might have been that miss on Pearly that really turned that game. Because I think maybe if it hit, he'd have had the 1 extra card, so Darren would have played the Book of Moon, and then he would have had a card to discard for whatever spell he had in hand, and then could have summoned the Lily and searched, and then made an XYZ with Lily. So, yeah,
I think it was a bit of a sequencing issue, maybe. I think that was probably played a little bit better just by going for the Lily, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm not 100%, because the Lily, what it can't add is another quick play. So if you want another quick play, then you can't get it. So maybe if you really needed another quick play, you just have to take the gamble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, props Darren. He just kept calm. Maybe it was, maybe you're supposed to hold the Book of Moon. It's tricky to tell, because if you don't activate the Book of Moon, then there's a Kashtira monster. It can banish one of your cards from your extra deck or field, depending on which one you leave face up. And it also leaves that Kashtira Birth active. So people don't pay attention enough sometimes to that third effect of Kashtira Birth, which lets you banish cards from your opponent's graveyard when they use a spell card.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. So going into game number 3 here, I suppose the decision is on Fletcher to choose whether to go first or second. And you mentioned quite well, actually, I did like the idea of going second with Kashtira, but now Fletcher has to decide, do you go first with the Pearly deck? I mean, Vanity's Emptiness is in here. That's a pretty good card.
Huh?
Yeah, Vanity's Fiends.
Vanity's Emptiness would be that would be quite the pick.
Yeah, I think we'd have to get the police involved if that was the case.
Yeah, that's too serious for a judge to handle. Someone's playing Vanity's Emptiness.
Yeah, so a lot of going first cards here. How bad is Rivalry against Kashtira?
Again, you have to play a bit. I'm pretty sure. So
there's a couple of different typings, I think, right? Are they all psychics?
The levels, the main boys, your Fenrir and your Unicorn, are both psychic. Rise Heart,
which clearly,
4,
as you can see from that last duel, that's all he needed.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. The Rise Heart level 4 is a warrior, and Scareclaw, I don't want to say. It's a Kashtira monster. I don't know what not a Kashtira monster. Well, it is a Kashtira monster. It's a Scareclaw monster. I don't know if it shares a type with all the other Scareclaws. I don't think you're siding in Rivalry to deal with Kashtira. I don't know if you play Vanity's Fiends against Kashtira, because obviously they do want to special summon their monsters, but they can always normal summon them if they've drawn a copy of Kashtira Birth. So that's kind of so-so. Might be the case you just go second. As we said, like, if the Kashtira player wants to go second, then maybe the Pearly player wants to make them go first, because that way they don't get to go second. So
yeah, there's a Dart Ruler no more in there, so I can imagine that's there primarily for Super Heavy Samurai, but there could be a little bit of crossover here if he's decided to go second. We'll just have to find out as we head on over to our table here for game number 3. This is all to play for in the top 16. Darren Stevenson versus Fletcher Leahy. Game 3, 8,000, 8,000. Let's see how this one unfolds.
Nice friendly handshake from Darren there.
All right, 5 to 5, and I'm just really excited to see how this one plays out. It's so intense when you have a game 3 like this, so deep into. I guess it's not that deep yet, but it's still pretty intense here. You're in top 16.
It's always nice to see those back and forth games.
It's a bit of a awkward hand here by Fletcher. I think that's one too many defensive cards you'd want for going first here.
I think he's having a good think because, I mean, obviously he knows what he wants to do with the Sleepy Memory, but he has to pick what card that he least likes in his hand. So we see a lot of different cards to discard, being, that Ash, that Nibiru.
Yeah, Primal Being is a really good card into Cash Zero, specifically going second, because, I mean, if you're going second, you are going to have to, special summon a lot to try and crack your opponent's field. And so as a last-ditch effort, that's going to be really strong in Fletcher's hand.
It's not bad going first, because a lot of people mention this. That if you're going first with Cash Zero, then maybe you can get away with just making the Rise Heart and passing, and that's exactly 4 summons. But you can't really do 4 summons when you're going second, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's say your opponent interrupts one of them. Now all of a sudden, if you want to even make an Arise Heart, you need at least 5 summons. So Nibiru is pretty reasonable to keep in going first for sure. Fletcher just deciding what he wants. It looks like he's going to go for 3 copies of Delicious.
Yeah, this is generally how you start your first turn with Pearly here. You really want that. Delicious to get Plump rolling.
Yeah, Plump is.
Oh, Droll and Logbird, okay.
So for anyone wondering why Darren's used Droll and Logbird on the second search, it's probably because Fletcher used his Sleepy Memory in the draw phase rather than, the main phase. So Droll and Logbird says if your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, except during the draw phase. So it's always good if you can use something in the draw phase to use it in the draw phase.
Yep, exactly. I suppose one of the few disadvantages of such a powerful hand trap as Droll and Logbird here, as the Nibiru will finally be discarded, and that's going to be, I don't know.
Do you think you have a reaction when you see Nibiru being discarded? Do you think that means they don't have Nibiru, or do you think that means they have another Nibiru? Because why would they do
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because, you're identifying that they definitely play that card as you did in game 1, and then they discard it again here. I don't know. It's rough. I think going second for Darren, I assume you're probably in a situation where you just kind of have to go in regardless of how much you fear that Nibiru, right?
For sure.
So that Per Lily was...
and the Vanity's Fiend. Darren just kind of nodding to himself there. And we can hear him laughing all the way over here.
Yep, that is a
So this looks
Fiend.
like a kind of birth or bust situation, I would say.
He's got a book in his hand.
Or a book, I
he's
suppose.
got a book.
Okay, that's also pretty solid. Does it have... It can draw a card, I suppose you might as well. Fletcher's last card is Ash Blossom, so this really hasn't been a super opening. It just depends if you've got a way to deal with the Vanity's Fiend, which, as you said, Book of Moon works perfectly well.
Yeah, but I'm struggling to see a lot of engine in Darren's hand here. I'm hoping that's not just all, defensive cards.
Maybe, it's either we're struggling to see it.
Oh, double Book of Moon, okay.
So maybe he's doing this in the draw phase to get ahead of that effect that lets you draw a card.
Yeah, that makes sense there. Oh, wow. All right, and there's this unicorn. That's incredible. All right, but we do know that Fletcher's going to hit this with an Ash Blossom. But the question is, does Darren have another card to be able to play through that?
Looks like he's let the search go.
All right, okay. Why do you think?
Maybe he's just saving it for Theosis.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing is, I've noticed is sometimes people hold for Theosis and then they can't just get punished by Birth, right?
So in this case, Darren's searched Birth, but it's better this way around for Fletcher, right? Because now, if he'd ashed the unicorn, then the Theosis would have. This is terrible though. So if you've already got Theosis in hand and then you ash Unicorn and your opponent activates Theosis, then you feel like a bit of a muppet, right? So whereas if you hold it and if they don't, so in this situation, if Darren had rather than the extra Fenrir in hand, he'd had Theosis, then he would have searched Birth and then Ash would have come down on the Theosis and then maybe Darren wouldn't have had any follow-up. But in this case, Darren's had an awful lot of follow-up, which is going to be very distressing for Fletcher.
This is a perfect combination of outs here for Darren. The double book, the exact engine requirements to play through exactly Ash Blossom. I think that's quite a commanding position as Fletcher is on... Does he have a card in hand?
No, this is nothing.
Yeah.
He's going to start losing his extra deck as well. He's going to lose his graveyard to Birth if he uses a spell card. Cash Zero just banishes all of your opponent's cards face down. It has no mercy.
Face down recursion of banish cards is almost impossible to get back in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? There's very few cards that let you do that.
There is a Rise Heart, exactly.
Exactly, Rise Heart, yeah. Which even then, you can't exactly, when you reattach if there's multiple banish cards, you can't, like, pick the one, right? Because it's, like, random, or...
No, you can pick if it's your own one.
I suppose because, like, you can count it in the order that it's banished, right? Like, that is technically, like...
Well, yeah, you can pick it, your own cards
Sure.
you're allowed to look at and choose. One thing that was quite fun, you reminded me of a very long time ago, is if you used Pot of Desires, and then you had a Side-Frame Lord Omega, it lets you return a card that's banished, so you can do that as well.
Yeah.
You'd use that to return your Snow, just for a lot of memories. But yeah, this is looking like Darren is firmly in control of this game. Can't really imagine what could come off the top of Fletcher's deck here to get him out of the situation, if Darren even gives him another turn.
Is there anything that you can do with, the sort of the banishing from the extra that's actually relevant here? I mean, you will just be taking apart, like, Zeus's, I think, is the most important thing.
Well, at this point, you could go after the smaller engine pieces.
Yeah.
If you wanted to as well. So you could, for example, take away that Happiness, which was the one card kind of comeback.
Oh, he's actually going to Big Eye.
Well, Big Eye can make a very large Zeus using the opponent's plump, which is pretty brutal.
I thought he was gonna Big Eye the Vanity's Fiend, but you can't flip it up this turn.
You can flip it up, yeah.
No, because it was... Oh, true.
It was only Book of
Yeah,
Moon.
yeah. Do you think that was, like, maybe a play?
That would have been very funny as well.
Yeah, just lock your opponent under their own Vanity's Fiend.
Whether you think like a Vanity's Fiend or like a 25 material Zeus or however many it's got. You can also use Plump to attach 2 more cards. I don't think Darren's that next level, though. I'm going to have to call him out on that in the interview. Be like, you could have had a bigger Zeus, Darren.
You could have had more Zeus. That's really funny. That's a game over.
Look at Darren. He's very excited.
Yeah, he's happy. Oh, wow. Top 16 taken down by Darren here. That was intense.
That was a battle of Book of Moons. There were like 8 Book of Moons played in that game.
Yeah, the